Welcome back to Billionaire Success Lessons. Today, I want to tell you the story of a woman whose life reminds us that success is not always loud, and it is not always easy to recognize in the beginning. Sometimes success begins in silence. Sometimes it begins in discipline, in heartbreak, in private work that the world does not applaud. And sometimes it begins in a person who is deeply thoughtful, deeply observant, and willing to keep building even when her role is misunderstood by almost everyone watching from the outside. That is what makes the story of MacKenzie Scott so powerful. Many people know her name because of Amazon, because of Jeff Bezos, or because of the billions she has given away. But if you look more closely, her life is about far more than headlines. It is about identity, courage, writing, reinvention, and the kind of generosity that turns private success into public good. MacKenzie Scott was born on April 7, 1970 in San Francisco, studied English at Princeton under Toni Morrison, worked at D.E. Shaw in New York, helped launch Amazon in 1994, later became a novelist, signed the Giving Pledge in 2019, and through yield giving has now supported nonprofits with billions of dollars in thousands of gifts. What makes her story meaningful is that her life did not move in one straight line. It did not begin with the world calling her extraordinary. It began with a young girl who loved words. She grew up in the San Francisco area, started writing very early, and once recalled drafting a 142-page book as a child. But childhood was not simply a protected world of comfort forever. Hotchkiss, her father, declared bankruptcy. She finished school early and a scholarship to Princeton, and later said that a loan from another student helped keep her from dropping out in her sophomore year. That part of her story matters deeply, because it shows that even when someone later becomes enormously wealthy, there may be seasons in life when the future feels fragile, uncertain, and painfully close to slipping away. At Princeton, MacKenzie Scott's love of writing found real direction. She studied under Toni Morrison, who later described her as one of the best students she had. Taught in creative writing, Scott also worked as a research assistant while Morrison was writing jazz. That is not a small detail. It tells us that before the business headlines, before the public curiosity, before the philanthropy, MacKenzie Scott was shaped by literature, language, and close attention to human complexity. She graduated in 1992 with a degree in English. And that foundation matters because writing teaches you to look beneath. It teaches patience. It teaches empathy. It teaches you that people are never as simple as the roles they're assigned. In many ways, those lessons would follow her into every chapter that came next. After college, she moved to New York. She worked as a waitress and then took an administrative position at the hedge fund D. E. Shaw. That is where she met Jeff Bezos. They married in 1993, left D. E. Shaw in 1994, and moved to the Seattle area to launch what would become Amazon. During the drive west, they worked on the business plan. In the earliest days, when the company was still tiny and uncertain, MacKenzie Scott handled bookkeeping, wrote checks, and oversaw freight contracts while the business operated out of a garage. Those details matter because they correct the story the world often tells so simply. Amazon did not appear from one person's mind alone in a vacuum. In those early years, the practical reality of the work, helping turn an idea into an operating company. And this is one of the deepest lessons in her journey. Sometimes a person can be essential to the building of something and still not be the one the public talks about most. That happens in families. It happens in companies. It happens in partnerships. Some people carry enormous weight while standing just outside the spotlight. The world often loves a lone genius story because it is simple and dramatic. Real life is rarely that simple. MacKenzie Scott's role in the early Amazon story reminds us that contribution does not become less real just because it is less loudly celebrated. A person can be foundational without being theatrical. A person can help build something massive and still remain in the public imagination, strangely underestimated. As Amazon grew, MacKenzie Scott stepped back from the day-to-day business to focus on writing and family life. She turned more of her energy toward literature. In 2005, she published her debut novel, The Testing of Luther Albright. It received positive reviews and won the 2006 American Book Award. In 2013, she published a second novel, Traps. This part of her life is easy to overlook if people only focus on wealth, but it may be one of the most revealing chapters of all. She did not abandon the part of herself that loved words. She did not lose the writer inside the business story. She kept returning to language, character, and the inner world. That tells us something beautiful about identity. Even when life takes us through giant public structures, there may still be a quieter calling inside you that refuses to disappear. There is something deeply moving about that, because many people lose themselves when they get close to power. They start living only by the labels the world gives them. Wife, founders, partner, billionaire, public figure. But MacKenzie Scott kept another part of herself alive. She kept writing. She kept thinking. She kept developing a voice that belonged to her, not just to the company she helped launch or the marriage that world was watching from the outside. That is an important kind of strength. Not the strength of domination, but the strength of remaining inwardly intact. Then came one of the most public and painful transitions of her life. In 2019, after 25 years of marriage, she and Jeff Bezos divorced. She received a quarter of the couple's Amazon stock, then worth more than $38 billion, which left her with a 4% stake in Amazon. After the divorce, she began using Scott, her middle name, as her surname. It would have been easy for that moment to define her only in the public imagination as someone who had become famous through separation and wealth. But this is where the story turns in a way few people expected. She did not treat that chapter as the end of her identity. She treated it as the beginning of a new one. In May 2019, she signed the Giving Pledge, publicly committing to give away the majority of her wealth. That alone mattered. But what mattered even more was what happened after. She did not make a symbolic gesture and then stop. She moved quickly, decisively, and in a way that challenged the traditions of elite philanthropy. Through yield giving, the network established to distribute her wealth, billions upon billions of dollars have supported non-profits through thousands of gifts, often with an emphasis on allowing them to use the funds as they see fit for the benefit of others. That is not charity as performance. That is philanthropy as trust. And that may be the chapter of her life that has most profoundly changed how the world sees her. MacKenzie Scott did not simply become one of the richest women in the world. She became one of the most consequential givers in modern philanthropy. Her model drew attention because it moved differently. It often involved large, unrestricted grants. It often centered organizations doing difficult work without demanding that they reshape themselves to satisfy a donor's ego. That is powerful, because money can do more than help. It can also control. Her approach suggested a different belief, that people close to the work, how resources should be used. What makes this so remarkable is that her public identity could have taken a much easier route. She could have become famous mainly for being rich. She could have become another distant billionaire seen only in lists and rankings. She could have built a more conventional image, safer and more predictable. Instead, she chose action. She chose speed. She chose generosity on a scale that forced people to reconsider what held by someone who truly intends to let it go. That decision reveals character. It reveals that success it is about release. It is about redistribution. Responsibility comes with extraordinary resources. Her giving has supported childhood development, racial equality, higher education, historically black colleges and universities, indigenous institutions, and Hispanic-serving institutions. The official yield-giving site shows a broad database of grants across areas such as economic security, housing, education, public health, gender justice, human rights, and climate-related work. In other words, her philanthropy has not been narrow. It has been expansive. And it has consistently moved toward people and communities that are often underfunded relative to the scale. That matters because it reveals a worldview. She has not merely asked where money can be seen most easily. She has asked where it can matter most deeply. And that brings us to one of the most beautiful truths in her story. MacKenzie Scott turned a chapter of public rupture into a chapter of public healing. That does not mean pain disappeared. It does not mean reinvention was easy. It means she refused to let one. Part of her story will become the whole story. So many people get trapped there. They go through divorce, failure, loss, public misunderstanding, and from that moment on they begin living inside a smaller version of themselves. MacKenzie Scott did the opposite. She became larger, not only financially larger, but morally larger, more purposeful, more directed, more independent in the... There is another powerful lesson in her life, and it has to do with quiet people. Our culture often underestimates people who are not constantly performing. It rewards the loud, But MacKenzie Scott's rise shows us that quiet does not mean weak. Quiet can mean observant. Quiet can mean disciplined. Quiet can mean someone is building foundations while others are busy building image. She has never felt like someone trying to overwhelm the world with spectacle. And yet look at the scale of what she has done. She helped build one of the most important companies of the modern era. She wrote award-winning fiction. She redefined what large-scale philanthropy can look like. That is not the life of a minor figure. That is the life of a person whose power was simply expressed in a different register. Her story also speaks to anyone who has ever felt reduced by the world's version of them. Maybe people only know you through the person you married, the company you worked at, the family you came from, or the one public. Maybe they do not see the private discipline, the early sacrifices, the real intelligence, the interior life, the years of work that never made a headline. MacKenzie Scott's life offers a quiet form of encouragement. You do not need to stay trapped in the identity of the people. Find easiest to assign to you. You can write another chapter. You can become known for something deeper. You can let the world catch up to who you actually are. And that is especially true because reinvention in her case did not come from pretending the past did not happen. It came from building forward. She did not erase Amazon from her story. She did not erase literature from her story. She did not erase marriage, family, or public scrutiny from her story. She simply refused to stop there. she'll let those experiences become material for something larger. That is what wise people do with life. They do not always get to choose every chapter, but they do choose what to build from it. There is also something profoundly literary about the way she has lived. Writers know that a life is not defined only by plot twists. It is defined by meaning, by what changes inside a person, by what they learn to value, by the difference between what they are handed and what they choose to do with it. MacKenzie Scott was handed extraordinary wealth, yes, but many people are handed resources and never turn them into moral action on this scale. What makes her story powerful is not merely that she had the capacity to give. It is that she actually gave and kept giving and reshaped expectations while doing it. So what can we learn from MacKenzie Scott's journey? We can learn that early hardship can sharpen compassion instead of hardening the heart. We can learn that being underestimated does not prevent a person from being essential. We can learn that there is strength in staying true to the quieter parts of yourself, even when life takes you through massive public structures. We can learn that wealth does not automatically equal wisdom, but it can become a tool of wisdom when paired with humility and trust. We can learn that reinvention is possible after public pain. And we can learn that success becomes far more meaningful when it turns outward and begins lifting others, not just enlarging the self. If you are listening to this during a season when your life feels overshadowed by someone else's name, someone else's title, someone else's story, let MacKenzie Scott's life remind you of something important. You are not required to remain in the role the world first gave you. You can become larger than the label. You can carry your intelligence into new ground. You can turn private discipline into public impact. And if you are in a chapter of pain right now, her story carries another truth. A breaking point does not have to be an ending. Sometimes it becomes the doorway into the most meaningful work of your life. In the end, MacKenzie Scott's story is not just about Amazon. It is not just about billions. It is not just about divorce, philanthropy, or even literature by themselves. It is about the slow, determined shaping of a human being who kept choosing purpose over image. It is about a young writer who studied under Toni Morrison, a partner who helped build a company in its earliest days, a novelist who kept faith with her own voice, and a philanthropist who used unprecedented wealth to support thousands of organizations with uncommon trust. That is why her journey deserves a place here on Billionaire Success Lessons, because Haley reminds us that the deepest success is not only what you build for yourself, it is what you release into the world after you have become strong enough to know who you are,